My phone lit up with a name I never expected to see again. Mom. After 5 years of complete silence there, she was reaching through time as if nothing had happened. As I stared at the screen, memories flooded back. The day I found my wife Sophia with my colleague. The crushing betrayal that followed when my own mother took her side. And now, just when I had finally rebuilt my life, here was Mom calling with a request about Sophia that would test everything I had become. Before I tell you how I discovered my wife's affair and why my own mother chose her side, drop a comment, letting me know if you have ever had to cut off family. And hit subscribe if you want more stories about standing your ground when everyone expects you to cave. I grew up as a first-generation American, with strong Mexican heritage. My father passed away when I was young, leaving my mother Maria to raise me alone. She worked 3 jobs, sometimes sacrificed everything to give me opportunities, and eventually saw me graduate and become an architectural engineer at one of the top firms in Chicago. We were incredibly close. She was my rock, my confidant, the one person I thought would always have my back no matter what. I met Sophia during my final year of college. She shared my cultural background, had the same values, and made me laugh like no one else. We connected instantly, and within a year we were planning our lives together. The wedding was beautiful, intimate, with both our families celebrating our union. My mother adored Sophia from day one, often saying she was the daughter she never had. They would cook together, shop together, and Sophia would help Mom with her English. For 6 years we had what I believed was the perfect marriage. We bought a house in the suburbs, both advanced in our careers, and were discussing starting a family. Sophia worked as a marketing director for a retail company, often attending evening events and networking functions. I supported her ambitions, completely proud of the strong, independent woman I had married. The first signs appeared so gradually, I almost missed them. Sophia began working later, became protective of her phone, and our intimacy slowly faded. She explained it away as work, stress, and project deadlines. I believed her because I wanted to, because trust was fundamental to our relationship. In March, I was scheduled for a week-long business trip to Seattle to oversee a new project. 2 days and several key meetings were unexpectedly canceled, leaving the remainder of the trip unnecessary. Rather than waste time, I decided to fly home early and surprise Sophia. Perhaps we could even have a spontaneous date night to reconnect. I arrived home around 8 in the evening, noticing an unfamiliar car parked down the street. Our house seemed quiet from the outside, but as I unlocked the door, I heard music playing upstairs. Setting my bags down quietly, I headed up, thinking Sophia might be relaxing in a bath after work. What I found instead demolished my world in an instant. Sophia was in our bed with Jordan, a colleague from my own firm. The man I had mentored when he first joined the company 3 years ago. The man who had eaten dinner at our table, who had looked me in the eye and called me friend. They scrambled apart when they saw me, Sophia clutching sheets to her chest, eyes wide with shock rather than shame. Jordan grabbed for his clothes, stammering excuses I could barely process. The room seemed to tilt sideways as a strange calm settled over me. I did not shout. I did not threaten. I simply asked Jordan to leave, which he did barely dressed, and avoiding my gaze. When we were alone, Sophia began crying, telling me it was a mistake, that it had only happened once, that she had been lonely. The calmness in my response surprised even me. I told her I needed time to think, and that I would be staying elsewhere that night. She became frantic, then begging me not to leave, saying we could work through this. But I had already seen the truth in her eyes when I first walked in. There had been surprise, but no real remorse. I checked into a hotel, then spent the night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every moment of our marriage, wondering how long the deception had been happening under my nose. By morning, I had decided separation was necessary while I sorted through my feelings. Before I could even call Sophia to discuss next steps, my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice strained and angry in a way I had rarely heard. Sophia had gone straight to her after I left. My mother demanded I return home immediately and fix things with my wife. When I tried to explain what had happened, she cut me off. That is when I heard the words that would ultimately sever our relationship. Sophia told her I had been neglectful, too focused on work, emotionally unavailable. And my mother believed her without question. My shock must have been audible. I had just caught my wife in our bed with another man, and somehow I was being cast as the villain. When I pointed this out, my mother said something I will never forget. Sometimes men drive women to make mistakes. I hung up the phone feeling as if I had been betrayed twice in 24 hours. The weeks that followed were a blur of pain and disbelief. I filed for divorce, moved my things out of our home, and tried to make sense of how my life had imploded so completely. Sophia did not contest the divorce initially, but as proceedings moved forward, she began constructing a narrative that painted me as cold and distant, suggesting her infidelity was a response to my emotional abandonment. What wounded me most deeply was seeing my mother sitting beside Sophia during our first court appearance. They entered together, spoke in hushed tones, and when Sophia tearfully addressed the judge, my mother nodded supportively at every accusation leveled against me. The message was clear in my mother's eyes. I was the one who had failed this marriage. Through a mutual friend who worked at Sophia's company, I discovered emails between Sophia and Jordan dating back nearly 2 years. Their affair had not been a one-time mistake, but a calculated, ongoing deception. They had taken business trips together, created alibis for weekend getaways, and even discussed their future once they figured out how to end our marriage without Sophia losing her financial stability. I forwarded these emails to my mother, expecting her to finally see the truth. Instead, she called me furious, accusing me of invading Sophia's privacy and fabricating evidence out of spite. She refused to even read the messages, saying that, regardless of what Sophia had done, marriage was sacred in our culture, meant to withstand all challenges. All families have problems, she said, and real men find solutions rather than walk away. Her words reflected the traditional values she had grown up with, but to me they felt like a dismissal of my pain. It was as if my feelings did not matter in the equation, only the preservation of a marriage that had been built on lies. Despite this, I tried once more to reach her. I drove to her house, hoping a face-to-face conversation might break through her resistance. Instead, I found Sophia's car in the driveway. Through the front window, I could see them in the kitchen cooking together and laughing, as if nothing had changed. It was then that I realized my mother had made her choice, and it was not me. The final breaking point came that December. The divorce was nearly finalized, and I had managed to maintain minimal but civil contact with my mother, hoping time would eventually bring her around. Then my cousin called to tell me Mom had invited Sophia to the family Christmas gathering, introducing her to relatives as my wife, rather than soon-to-be ex-wife, and explaining that we were simply going through a rough patch. I called my mother that night and told her I would not attend any family event where Sophia was welcomed, as if she had not destroyed our marriage. She accused me of being stubborn and unforgiving. When I asked why she continued to choose Sophia over her own son, she claimed she was choosing family unity over division. In that moment, I made the hardest decision of my life. I told my mother that until she could respect my feelings and acknowledge the truth of what had happened, I needed to step away from our relationship completely. Her response was to tell me I would regret abandoning family when I calmed down and came to my senses. I moved to Denver the following month, accepting a position with a rival firm that offered advancement opportunities. The fresh start in a new city helped me begin healing. I changed my phone number, limited my social media presence, and asked extended family not to share my contact information with my mother. During that first year, she tried repeatedly to reach me through various family members. She sent birthday cards, holiday greetings, and messages asking me to call. Each time, I politely declined through intermediaries. It was not out of spite, but self-preservation. Every interaction with her reopened wounds that were still too raw. Through occasional updates from my cousins, I learned that Sophia remained surprisingly close with my mother, even after the divorce was finalized. Sophia would help her with errands, take her to doctor appointments, and join her for Sunday dinners. It was as if my mother had chosen to keep the daughter-in-law and discard the son. I threw myself into work and started seeing a therapist who specialized in family estrangement. Slowly, I built a new support system of friends and colleagues who knew nothing of my past. The distance and time allowed me to process my anger and grief, to understand that my mother's actions were likely rooted in her own fears of abandonment and cultural beliefs about family, even if they had caused me tremendous pain. 3 years after the move, I met Elise at a work conference. She was a landscape architect, whose firm often collaborated with architectural engineers like myself. We started as professional contacts, then became friends who met for coffee to discuss industry trends. Eventually, those coffee meetings evolved into dinner dates, and a relationship built on mutual respect and complete honesty. With Elise, I shared everything about my past. She listened without judgment, offering perspective without diminishing my experience. 4 years after leaving Chicago, I found myself in a healthy relationship, thriving in my career, and finally at peace with my decision to maintain boundaries with my mother. I still missed her, still loved her, but recognized that sometimes love means letting go. Then came the call that would test everything I had rebuilt. 5 years of silence ended with a simple ringtone. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice was unmistakable. My mother sounded older, her voice slightly shakier than I remembered, but the emotional pull was immediate and intense. "Guillermo, is that you?" she asked, as if we had spoken just yesterday. I stood in the kitchen of the Mountain View home I now shared with Elise, our recent engagement still a fresh source of joy. We had spent the past year renovating the house together, making it truly ours, a symbol of our future. And now, with one unexpected call, my past came rushing back. "Yes, Mom, it is me," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt inside. She began crying softly, telling me how much she had missed me, how often she had thought of me. She apologized for losing touch, a strange way to characterize a deliberate estrangement, as if we had simply drifted apart through mutual neglect. "I cannot do this over the phone," she said finally. "Can we meet? Please, mijo. There is so much I need to say to you in person." After we hung up, I sat with Elise in our living room discussing whether meeting my mother was a good idea. Elise, ever supportive, said she would respect whatever decision I made, but gently suggested that closure might be worth the risk. I also spoke with my therapist, who helped me establish clear boundaries for the potential meeting. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where either of us could leave if things became too difficult. When I arrived, she was already there, looking smaller than I remembered, her hair now fully gray. She stood when she saw me, hesitated, then embraced me before I could decide if I was ready for that level of contact. The first 20 minutes were awkward. We spoke about surface topics: the weather in Denver, her health issues, my visible happiness. Finally, she took a deep breath and launched into what seemed like a prepared speech. "I was wrong, Guillermo," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "I should have supported you, believed you. I was so afraid of losing Sophia because she had become like a daughter to me. After your father died, I never thought I would have a complete family again. And when you married Sophia, it felt like I finally did. I could not bear to lose that, so I refused to see what was happening." Her words seemed genuine, and I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of pain I had carried for so long beginning to unravel. "I miss you every day," she continued. "I want to be part of your life again, if you will let me. I know I cannot undo what happened, but I hope we can start rebuilding now." I was cautious, but hopeful. I told her about Elise, about our engagement, about the life we were building. She seemed happy for me, asked to see pictures, and made all the right noises about wanting to meet the woman who had brought joy back into my life. Then came the shift. "Sophia still asks about you," she said casually, as if testing the waters. I stiffened but said nothing. "She and that man Jordan, it did not work out," my mother continued. "He left her for someone younger at his firm. History repeating itself, I suppose." "I am sorry to hear that," I replied automatically, though I felt nothing at the news. Not satisfaction, not sorrow. Sophia had become a stranger to me. "She is having a hard time," my mother pressed on. "The marketing company downsized, and she had to take a lower-paying position. She is struggling to keep her condo." With each word, I began to understand the true purpose of this reunion. The realization turned my coffee bitter in my mouth. She has changed, Guillermo. She has grown up, learned from her mistakes. She asks about you all the time, wants to know if you are happy. Mom, I said quietly, are you here to talk about rebuilding our relationship or to advocate for Sophia? She had the grace to look embarrassed, but only briefly. Both she admitted. She misses you. I miss you. We were all family once. That is when I understood that nothing had truly changed. In her mind, the three of us were still a unit temporarily fractured, but meant to be reunited. My 5 years of healing, my new relationship, my hard-won peace, none of it registered as real to her. Sophia made a mistake, a terrible one, my mother said, reaching for my hand across the table. But do not all people deserve second chances? The church teaches forgiveness, mijo. I withdrew my hand gently but firmly. I have forgiven Sophia, Mom. That does not mean I want her back in my life. But you have not even spoken to her, not once, since the divorce, she protested. How can you know what might be possible? You were so good together before. I felt a familiar anger rising but managed to keep my voice level. We were not good together. She was having an affair for 2 years of our 6-year marriage. 1/3 of our relationship was a lie. People change, she insisted. Yes, they do, I agreed. I have changed. I am engaged to a wonderful woman who respects me and whom I trust completely. My mother's expression hardened slightly. You barely know this, Elise. Sophia is family. That was when I realized this meeting was not about reconciliation with me at all. It was about fixing what my mother saw as a broken family unit, with no regard for my feelings or the new life I had built. Does Sophia know you are meeting me today? I asked suddenly. My mother's hesitation told me everything. She asked you to do this. Did not she? She hopes you might consider talking to her just once, my mother admitted. She still loves you, Guillermo. I stood up my chair, scraping loudly against the floor. 5 years, Mom. 5 years of silence from you. And the only reason you reached out was to try to get me back with the woman who betrayed me, who you chose, over your own son. That is not fair, she protested, rising as well. I love you. I want us to be a family again. I already have a family, I told her. I have Elise and friends who respect my boundaries. I have built a new life that makes me happy. So you will throw away your mother for some new woman, she demanded, her voice rising. Several heads turned in the coffee shop, but I no longer cared. No, I said clearly. I lost my mother 5 years ago when she decided my pain did not matter when she chose someone else over me. I had hoped today might be about healing that wound, but I see now it is just another attempt to manipulate me into doing what you want. Guillermo, please, she called, as I walked toward the door. Do not leave like this. But I did, my steps quick and determined as I exited the coffee shop and headed to my car. Behind me I could hear her calling my name, but I did not look back. When I returned home, Elise took one look at my face and opened her arms without saying a word. I sank into her embrace, letting the tension drain from my body as I told her everything about the failed reconciliation. I'm so sorry, she said when I finished. I should never have encouraged you to go. No, I needed to know, I replied. I might have always wondered if I was missing an opportunity to heal things with my mother. Now I know that what she wants is not reconciliation, but compliance. She does not see me as someone with valid feelings and boundaries, just as a piece in the family portrait she wants to reassemble. 2 days later, my cousin Anthony called. I had kept in minimal contact with him over the years, as he had respected my distance from the family drama. You met with your mom, he said without preamble. News travels fast. She is upset, says you would not even consider talking to Sophia. I sighed, unsurprised. Did she tell you the part where she only reached out to me because Sophia put her up to it? Anthony was quiet for a moment. No, but I am not shocked. Sophia has been at your mom's house constantly these past few weeks, ever since she got evicted from her condo. That detail my mother had conveniently omitted. So Sophia was living with her now. The manipulation ran even deeper than I had realized. This whole reunion attempt, it was Sophia's idea, wasn't it? I asked. Probably, Anthony admitted. Look, I am not taking sides here, but I thought you should know the full story. Sophia lost her job completely 3 months ago. Jordan cleaned out their joint account before he left her for his assistant. She had nowhere to go except your mom's place. The pieces fell into place. Sophia, facing financial ruin, had seen me as a potential solution to her problems. My mother, still clinging to her image of our perfect family, had been the perfect conduit for this attempt. That night I wrote my mother a long email. I explained that while I would always love her as my mother, I could not allow her to disregard my boundaries. I told her that I was happy in my new life, that Elise and I were planning our wedding, and that Sophia had no place in my future. I made it clear that any relationship between us going forward would require her to respect my choices, including my choice of partner. Send it only if it will bring you peace, Elise advised. Not to punish her or make her understand. She may never understand. I took her wisdom to heart and sent the email, not out of anger, but as a final attempt at clarity. I did not expect a response, and for weeks, none came. Elise and I proceeded with our wedding plans, deciding on a small ceremony in the mountains with just our closest friends. I did not send my mother an invitation, a decision that brought both sadness and relief. 6 months after our coffee shop meeting, a package arrived at our house. Inside was a collection of old family photos, some dating back to my childhood, others from my father's youth in Mexico. At the bottom of the box was a handwritten note from my mother. It contained no mention of Sophia, no pleas for reconciliation on her behalf. Instead, it simply said, "These belong to you. I am sorry for everything. I wish you happiness with Elise. Love, Mom." It was not the dramatic reconciliation that happens in movies. There was no tearful reunion, no instant healing of all wounds. But it was an acknowledgement, however, small, that my life was my own to build. I sent a thank you card for the photos, including a picture of Elise and me on a hiking trip. My mother replied with a brief note congratulating us on our engagement. Our communication remained minimal but civil, a fragile bridge being tentatively reconstructed. Through Anthony, I learned that Sophia had eventually moved out of my mother's house and relocated to Florida for a fresh start. My mother had not mentioned her to me again, finally seeming to understand that this boundary was non-negotiable. The greatest lesson from these painful years was that family is not just about blood or history. It is about respect, about honoring each other's journey, even when you do not fully understand it. Sometimes the healthiest love we can offer is the space for each person to heal in their own way. With Elise by my side, I built a chosen family of friends who supported each other unconditionally. We created holiday traditions that blended her family customs with elements of my cultural heritage that still mattered to me. I found peace in establishing boundaries that protected my well-being while leaving space for growth and change. True strength, I discovered, is not found in forgetting betrayal or pretending it never happened. It comes from acknowledging the pain, learning its lessons, and then building something beautiful from what remains. It comes from recognizing that you deserve relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation or manipulation. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between peace and family expectations? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more about navigating complicated family dynamics and finding your own path to healing. Do not forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the family we choose brings the greatest healing to the family we were born into.